If you've been with this channel a while and you've watched lots of my videos, you might have heard me mention this before. But if you're new here or you haven't seen those specific videos, I am a former addict. At the time of recording this video though, it's been 4 years since I had my last cigarette and I've been clean for 4.5. So I think it's about time that I share some of the lessons that I learned over that time, and I hope that maybe someone watching this who's struggling with an addiction of their own can perhaps use this advice and go on to beat it, or at least get some inspiration from this video to actually try and get over your own addiction. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what a lot of addicts get wrong. So addictions are not hobbies, they're not small pastimes that you don't give much thought or attention to usually. They're a consuming drive, they're almost like an instinct. They're similar to your desire to eat or to sleep. They're a very, very strong drive to do something. As a result of that, they can become a huge part of your life, to the point that for many people they become the main focus of every single day. I can say that for me, when I was an addict, yes, my addiction was my main focus. It was what I thought about when I woke up in the morning, and it was what I thought about last before I went to sleep. Now, if something is that huge a part of your life, then you leave an equally huge void when you get rid of it. If you simply leave this void there, then one of three things is going to happen. Number one, you'll spiral into depression because you just don't have that thing that was occupying so much of your time, so your life feels empty afterwards. Number two, the second possibility is that you'll relapse back into your original addiction. And number three, which is also very common, is that you replace this one addiction with another addiction to fill that hole. So how do we deal with this void? How do we deal with this hole? Well, as I just mentioned, often it can be tempting to fill the void left by one pleasurable addiction with another one. And usually this is an addiction that you perceive as being less harmful in some way, so you feel like, hey, okay, maybe it's still harming me, but I'm trading something really bad for something that's only just a bit bad. And I can see where this logic comes from, because you feel like you're doing yourself less harm. But the problem is, this is the wrong answer. Addiction itself is actually an unfulfilling void. And so addictions don't actually fill that hole. When you're trying to replace one addiction with another, you're not actually even replacing the first addiction, you're just adding a new one. So you're no less likely to relapse on the first addiction, and in fact it might even encourage you to do so, and now you end up with two addictions instead of one. Not to mention all of the additional issues that the new addiction itself introduces. Instead, what you really have to do is fill the void with something that is entirely positive, and something that you can put as much, or at least almost as much energy into as you put into your original addiction. So if we want to fill the void completely, we have to keep that in mind. Everyone's addiction is different. The positive things that you fill the void with should be proportional to the amount of energy that you put into your addiction in the first place. So if you're like I was, and your addiction is consuming your whole life, it is like what you think about 24/7, then you really need to find an entirely new focus for your life, because addiction was the sole focus of your life. So you need to find a whole new focus, a passion, something that you can really dedicate your whole life to. You can't just replace something that was your main focus of all of your time with some hobby that you spend 5 minutes on. That's not going to work. That's not going to fill the void, because the void was 90% of your life. You can't fill it with something that's like 1%. Now on the other hand, if your addiction is mild and it's just something that you do each day, once or twice out of habit, but it's not something that you spend all day on, it's not something that you spend hours a day on, it's just something, a bad habit that you want to break, then simply finding a new positive hobby to replace that with can often be enough. And it's important that you find this. It's important that you find a positive motivator. So let's get onto what exactly that is. So often when we're trying to get clean or we're trying to eliminate bad habits, we do so because of the negative things that habit causes. So for example, you stop smoking because you don't want to get lung cancer. You stop smoking because you're getting out of breath when you're going up and down the stairs. Now that's all well and good, that is a valid reason to stop smoking. But the problem is, if that's the only reason that you're stopping smoking, then you might find it impossible to quit. And that is because when your motivation or your self-esteem takes a hit, then you don't really care about the negatives. You know, if you're indulging in an addiction because, you know, you have low self-esteem, you're depressed or whatever, then the fact that that addiction is bad for you or whatever isn't going to matter in those moments when you're feeling really depressed, because, you know, you don't see yourself in a good light anyway, so you don't care what happens to you. So just being aware of the negatives of your addiction isn't enough to get you to stop. You need something positive, a reason to stay clean that has nothing to do with the negatives of the addiction itself. A reason to live, and something that you can put a great deal of energy into. Something that gives you a reason to stay clean, even if you're not caring about the negatives of the particular addiction in question. And it's really good if this positive thing is completely incompatible with your previous life and with your addiction. So a personal example here is meditation was the main positive motivator for me to get clean. I started meditating regularly, and one of the things that I quickly realised when I was doing this is that these two lives are incompatible. If I was getting high all the time, I wouldn't make any progress with meditation. So I simply couldn't continue that past life. I couldn't go back to it, or all of my meditation progress would be for nothing. So that gave me an additional reason to stay clean, because the habit left no room for my old habit. So find a positive motivator, whether it's a new habit or whether it's something positive that you want to do with your life, a positive change that you believe you can make in the world with your skills, and try to leave no room in your life for your past addiction. Make sure what you're doing is proportional. Don't leave a hole or void if you actually want to be able to stay clean and avoid relapse. Now, I hope this helps, and I want to say before we go that if you're struggling with addiction, I really recommend speaking to someone that you can trust about it. Going it alone is an incredibly difficult thing, and having people around you, having a support group of some kind, is going to make things a lot easier. If you have no one to speak to, then remember that, you know, you have a computer or a phone or some access to the internet because you're watching this video. So remember that online you can get resources for help as well. There are lots of recovery forums out there. There are lots of people that can offer you advice. You are not alone. Just remember that. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you want to keep watching, make sure you subscribe and enable notifications. And check out one of the videos on screen. Go watch that, and I'll see you there soon. Take care.